Welcome back to part 2 of this Yellana James analysis. So this is where I got up to last time. I've drawn a couple of bits out with some acrylic, got my watercolour base, which I quite like, and I think the whole thing needs to be pulled together a bit more now. It's looking very one-dimensional. So we'll see what we can do. So the first thing I did was I actually found a white marker. So I decided to draw in some of the little fronds on the seaweed using the white marker, which wasn't that effective. It's okay, not brilliant. And then I think the whole thing needs a little bit more colour adding to it. So I decided to get some more watercolour and went in with a purple and started to add a little bit more dimension to it. It looks a little bit flat. So starting in with a bit of purple in the corner and then some outlining to make some more of those seaweedy shapes or jellyfish shapes. So just adding a few lines as carefully as possible with the tip of the brush. And I think already that is starting to look a bit better. So I decided to do something similar. On this big white jellyfish thing, because it's standing out a little bit too much for my liking. It's not, because it's not very neatly painted, the white thing. I'm just thinking that I'm going to have to do something about that. But in the whilst I'm painting this purple, it's much easier, I've decided, to paint with the watercolour. I think Year 7 will get on a lot better with that. So just darkening up that with the watercolour again. Yeah, and it's definitely, I'm liking the watercolour much better. So that's the original, and as you can see, the lines are lovely, really beautifully painted, as opposed to those acrylic lines I've painted. So I've decided to get some yellow watercolour, and because the acrylic is, it's plastic, so basically I can go over it with watercolour and it's not going to run. So just sort of trying to hide those lines, and that I think definitely looks a lot better. Okay, so now just having a little look at Yellana's work to see what kind of detail she adds on top of her backgrounds. So I'm going to have a go at adding a little bit more detail now to get this whole thing coming together. So taking some of that acrylic that was on the page and mixing the purple with it. So the acrylic I'd already put out, I'm going to use up. So I've decided to use that to add some lighter bits to some of my dark areas. So just a few light rings, which looks quite effective. So these paintings are going to be done over a matter of a few weeks, and we will work in these sorts of stages. So we'll start off with the background. We'll add our main bits of drawing with watercolour, and then we will probably light and dark watercolour, and then we will probably go in with some watered down acrylic to add the final touches. But we'll have, the Year 7 will have to practice doing their lines. So yeah, I'm using a nice thin brush again to add some more detail. So by adding lots more to the page, it is coming together a little bit more, and I'm feeling a little bit more happy with it now. Adding a little bit more blue, and then I thought I'd go in with a few little dots, a little bit of embellishment to make it look a little bit more detailed. Adding a little bit of turquoise there, and then taking some of that purple to add a little bit of light to the dark paint. So it's quite effective. We do have quite a lot of acrylic, and we do have white pens in school, so Year 7 could also use some white pens if painting the blobs was a problem. Then I just, excuse my hand, paint a few seaweedy effects, but you can't see because my hand's in the way, so sorry about that. Just trying to make that area look a little bit more full. And paint in the middle. Okay, so that is actually looking a little bit better. I did actually think, oh, should I just outline this with a white pen, but it looked terrible, so I decided to abandon that as an idea. Okay, so I'm almost there now. I'm quite happy with some of the effects I've got. I think I'm just on to some final bits in the corners. So yeah, adding a bit more blue and painting some more shapes. So I thought I'd paint this one out completely and then add some white to it later on when it's dry. And then in the other corner, just adding in another seaweed shape. And then adding a few lines. So just to show you what can happen when you make a mistake and how we embrace all mistakes, I decided that was horrendous. So I just got some water, and while it was still wet, I overpainted it. I think that gave me quite a nice I dried it with a hairdryer just to work a bit more quickly. But I thought that gave me a nice sort of like diaphanous effect. So I just went in with a bit more purple paint on top of that. I was quite happy with that. So if we do have some disasters in year 7, we can always, play around, because watercolour can be quite forgiving if you work quickly. The last thing I did was I got my white pen and added some final details. So a few little aboriginal type of blobs, which I thought looked quite nice. And I do hope if Yellana James ever sees this, she'll forgive me for my ham-fisted attempt. But hopefully year 7 will enjoy this project. I think this has taught me what to do and what not to do, and hopefully they will get a lot out of it. So that's it. That's my attempt. It's not as easy as she makes it look, but I'm quite happy with that, and I think that year 7 will quite enjoy this as a project. So that's part 2. Thanks for watching.